A man named Caleb was hastily getting ready. He had too many tasks planned for the day. But a fiery brunette named Fiona wasn't pleased. She wanted Caleb to stay with her. He promised her they'd be together very soon. After leaving Fiona's house, Caleb straightened himself up and rushed home, to his wife. He briefly told her about his fictitious business trip, showered her with compliments, and dashed off to handle his errands. Meanwhile, Fiona was having a heartfelt conversation with her friend. She was fully aware that her lover was married. As for Caleb, while helping his friend, he shared his feelings about Fiona. He loved his wife Celine, but his feelings for Fiona were growing stronger. At dinner, Caleb and Celine met up with their friends. Celine shared her dreams of having a baby. Suddenly her mood was spoiled by another woman wearing the same dress as her. That woman was Fiona, who had shown up on a date. It turned out that Caleb had gifted identical dresses to both women. Caleb pulled Fiona aside and began scolding her for going on a date with another man. But Fiona had a solid argument. Caleb was married. What could he possibly expect from her? Caleb insisted that he loved Fiona but couldn't leave Celine. Fiona replied that if things continued like this, she would ruin his life. Caleb went to see Fiona because she had stopped answering his messages. The girl didn't like that the man was leading her on. Caleb promised that he just needed 2 more months, and then they would be together. Fiona asked him to keep his word. Celine left town for 3 days. Now Caleb and Fiona had enough time to enjoy each other's company. Later, they decided to go on a picnic, reminiscing about their first meeting in a grocery store. Even back then, Fiona had noticed the ring on Caleb's finger. But Caleb persistently tried to strike up a conversation and get to know her better. At the time, Caleb claimed he wasn't the kind of man who cheats. But his actions said otherwise. Fiona, along with her companion, worked as a fashion designer. Recently they had launched a new collection that became a success. It was featured in a well-known fashion magazine. As a congratulation, Caleb gifted Fiona a heart-shaped locket with a photo of them inside. The girl was deeply moved and promised to cherish the locket forever. That evening Miguel, Fiona's companion, threw a party, and the couple decided to attend. After all, no one knew that Caleb was married, and in a couple of months they would be officially together anyway. At home, Caleb and Fiona talked about the future. Fiona liked the idea of no longer being the other woman soon. The man swore he had chosen her. Celine returned home and Caleb greeted her, but almost immediately he got a phone call. He claimed it was work-related and that he had to take it. A sense of unease began to grow within Celine. The tension between the spouses escalated in the evening when Caleb said he wasn't in the mood, and Celine reminded him that they were planning for a baby and that now was the perfect time. Miguel expressed doubts, suggesting that Fiona might be celebrating her victory too early. He had seen similar situations often, and men didn't always keep their promises to leave their wives. Fiona brushed off his concerns and remained hopeful. Meanwhile, Celine went to see a fertility specialist. The appointment was supposed to be for both partners, but Caleb was busy with work. The doctor delivered devastating news. Celine's chances of conceiving were less than 1%. Her world crumbled, her dreams were shattered. When Caleb returned home, he found Celine in tears. She told him the news. She had dreamed of having a child, but it was impossible. At the same time, Fiona found out she was pregnant. She immediately sent Caleb a message, which Celine accidentally saw. It broke her completely. But the girl gathered her strength and decided to talk to her husband. She asked him to tell her everything honestly. Caleb began by saying he had never intended to hurt Celine or destroy their precious marriage. Celine's face contorted with rage as she promised Caleb he would regret his actions. Caleb went to see Fiona. The first thing he asked was whether he was the father of her child. He also told her that Celine knew everything. The next morning Caleb moved out of the house he shared with Celine. Before leaving, she asked if he was the father of Fiona's baby. Caleb nodded and left. 5 months later, Celine in disguise secretly followed now pregnant Fiona and Caleb. The couple was distributing invitations for a baby shower. Celine stole one of the invitations, learning that the couple was expecting a boy, as well as the time and place of the event. Caleb and Fiona were picking out a crib for the baby. Celine continued to shadow them, longing to be in Fiona's place. Celine grabbed everything she could find, including a book on preparing for motherhood. The cashier congratulated her on her first pregnancy and whispered that she had a knack for spotting expectant mothers. Tears welled up in Celine's eyes. She liked the thought that it was she who was expecting a child. Caleb decided to visit Celine. He tried to make amends, telling her how hard it was to forget her. But Celine dismissed her ex-husband, telling him to leave. The morning of a new day arrived, and Fiona was the first to wake up and open the blinds. She was startled to see a poster of herself with her eyes crossed out. Stepping outside, the couple found piles of trash and posters with offensive messages scattered around. It was clear that Celine was behind all of it. Meanwhile, Celine was waiting for a phone call. She took pleasure in Caleb's reaction. Fiona suggested getting a restraining order against Celine. Caleb, however, proposed installing cameras and going to court only if Celine did something worse. They didn't have to wait long. That evening, Caleb got into his car only to find drunk Celine waiting for him there. This time she got off with a warning for vandalism, but Caleb warned her that next time he wouldn't let it slide. At the baby shower, all of Caleb and Fiona's loved ones were present. Beautiful outfits, delicious food and hearty laughter, everything a party like this needed. Celine showed up uninvited. Disguised, she waited for the right moment. During the gift opening segment of the party, Fiona was delighted by the baby items she received. Meanwhile, Celine wasted no time. She spilled gasoline around the house. With trembling hands she struck a match. The flames engulfed the house almost instantly. The party was disrupted. Panic quickly spread among the guests. The building's owner suspected an electrical issue as the cause of the fire. Thankfully no one was hurt. In an empty house all alone, Celine tried on belly pads. She was determined to convince everyone that she was pregnant. Fiona's pregnancy didn't interfere with her work. She was happy to be with the man she loved, to have reconciled with her sister and to enjoy her thriving career as a fashion designer. Meanwhile, Caleb's friend spotted Celine in town, and noticed her belly. At night, Fiona began having nightmares. In one dream she saw herself dying. She asked Caleb to promise to take care of their baby if anything ever happened to her. Caleb reassured her, saying it was just a bad dream. Finally, the day their baby was born arrived. But Caleb and Fiona weren't the only ones waiting for this day, so was Celine. Celine had paid off a doctor who was scheduled to perform Fiona's surgery. Holding their newborn baby, Fiona came up with a name, Brody. Caleb loved it. A nurse came to take the baby, and as soon as she left, the lights flickered for a moment. Caleb's phone rang and he briefly stepped out of Fiona's ward. A doctor entered Fiona's ward. He told her he had some questions and pulled the curtain closed. Injecting her with something, he rendered her unconscious instantly. When Caleb returned, Fiona was being resuscitated with a defibrillator. The doctor emerged from the ward, informing Caleb of unexpected complications. Fiona's heart had stopped, and despite their efforts they couldn't save her. Caleb was devastated. 6 months passed. Caleb was still struggling with his grief. Fiona's family helped him with Brody and household tasks as much as they could. Heading out to work, Caleb found a bouquet of flowers. Sitting in his car, he opened the accompanying note. It was from Celine, who expressed her condolences and claimed she had left the past behind. She assured him he could rely on her. Caleb wasn't eager to reunite with his ex-wife. Time passed and Celine called Caleb, inviting him to lunch, just as friends. Caleb agreed. During lunch, Celine asked to see pictures of Brody. The girl admired them and offered to help as a nanny if needed. Later, when Caleb had no one else to watch Brody, he remembered Celine's offer. She agreed. Everything was going according to her plan. When Caleb handed Brody to Celine, she couldn't hold back her tears. Left alone with the baby, Celine secretly went through all of Fiona's belongings. By the time Caleb returned, she pretended she had spent the entire day with Brody. Visiting Fiona's grave, Caleb broke down, repeatedly saying how much he missed her. When Fiona's mother came to Caleb's house to babysit Brody, it was Celine who opened the door, wearing nothing but Caleb's shirt. Soon after, Celine suggested that she and Caleb move back into their old house together. 8 months passed. Caleb was showing Brody pictures of Fiona, unaware that Celine was secretly watching. The girl clearly didn't like it. One ordinary weekday while grocery shopping, Caleb accidentally encountered a young woman who was a spitting image of Fiona. The woman recognized Caleb and showed him a heart-shaped pendant, the very one he had once given to Fiona. It was Fabiola, Fiona's twin sister. Caleb could hardly believe the striking resemblance. Fabiola persuaded Caleb to let her meet her nephew. He agreed, albeit reluctantly, knowing Celine was at home. Seeing Fabiola brought back memories for Celine, memories of watching Fiona's death. Celine couldn't calm herself. She started an argument. Caleb told Celine he had invited Fabiola to a party, and Celine admitted that seeing Fabiola reminded her of everything she had lost. But Caleb reassured her that she was now Brody's mother, that he had been given a second chance and wouldn't waste it. Maybe in the future they could get married again and become a real family. This seemed to soothe Celine. When Brody cried, Caleb often showed him pictures of his mother, which usually comforted him. But this time Celine offered to rock the baby, so Caleb decided to look at the photos alone. Suddenly he realized all the pictures of Fiona were gone, replaced by ones of Celine. Shocked, he demanded an explanation. Celine calmly retrieved an identical album containing Fiona's photos. Caleb explained that he wanted Brody to know his real mother. Miguel visited Fabiola and suggested they go out and have some fun. She agreed, and they headed to a party. Coincidentally, the doctor, the very one responsible for Fiona's death, was there as well. The doctor approached Celine, offering his services in the future as well. Celine dismissed him, but he advised her not to rush into a response. Fabiola confided in Miguel that she didn't believe Fiona's death was natural. She suspected it was a crime. Celine learned that she had received a promotion. Caleb was genuinely happy for her. It was a position she had dreamed about for a long time. But Celine worried about who would care for Brody, as her new role would require her to spend more time in the office. Caleb reassured her, promising that finding nannies wouldn't be a problem, especially with Fiona's family, and now Fabiola offering their support. Celine's mood darkened immediately. Meanwhile, Fabiola visited Miguel and Fiona's office. She admired the beauty of the outfits her sister had designed. Miguel mentioned that at the upcoming New York Fashion Week, Fiona's collection was expected to be a hit. He also revealed that Fiona would be posthumously honored with a prestigious award. Miguel asked Fabiola to accept the award on Fiona's behalf and explained that they also needed photographers for a magazine feature. Photography was Fabiola's passion, so she eagerly agreed. She also requested one of her sister's dresses after the show. Miguel had no objections. In the park, Fabiola met Caleb and Brody. The girl took pictures of the baby and Caleb. They ordered pizza right in the park, and Fabiola shared with Caleb that she felt very strange being with her sister's husband and child, but without Fiona herself. Suddenly Caleb received a call. He was told that the fire at the party had not been caused by faulty wiring but by arson. Caleb didn't know who did it but promised to find out. He suspected Celine. The police had raided the doctor's house, the same one who had taken Fiona's life. They hadn't been able to arrest him yet, but his identity was known, and capturing the criminal was only a matter of time. At Fashion Week in New York, an unforeseen situation had arisen. One of the male models couldn't make it. Fabiola found a solution: Caleb. The show had gone perfectly. Caleb had handled his new role excellently. Miguel and late Fiona were awarded the Designer of the Year title. Fabiola had accepted the award on her sister's behalf. At the after-party, one of the most sought-after designers of modern times had complimented Miguel and Caleb. Caleb couldn't forget Fiona, and in Fabiola he saw her features. It hadn't taken long before they had merged into a kiss. At home, Miguel had a conversation with Fabiola about what had happened between her and Caleb. Caleb had been spending a cozy evening with Celine in front of the TV. Suddenly, the news reported that one of the doctors from the maternity hospital where Brody had been born was being sought by the police for causing the death of a patient. Caleb hadn't recognized the man, and Celine had pretended not to know him. The face that had flashed on the screen had seemed familiar to Caleb, but he couldn't figure out where he had seen this person before. After a while, Caleb had remembered. He recalled where he had seen that doctor, at the party, and this criminal had been whispering with Celine. Caleb had immediately dropped everything and rushed home. There, he had prepared dinner for Celine's arrival from work. He then had brought up the doctor, asking her how she knew him. But the girl had denied everything. Caleb had shouted and threatened Celine, but she hadn't said anything. Suddenly she had lost consciousness. When she had regained her senses, Celine had found herself tied to a chair. Caleb had once again asked her to tell him everything. The girl had admitted to her actions. She hadn't wanted to do it, she had just wanted to get Caleb back and have his child. Now there had been no point in denying that she had bribed the doctor. The girl had cried and said it was all for Caleb, so they could be together again happy. But now it had all been in the past. She was not a criminal, and she was not a bad person. Celine had also admitted that the fire had been her fault too. But they could forget about it all and move on. Caleb had decided to leave and take Brody with him. Celine had begged him not to take the child, as she was his mother. Caleb hadn't been able to bear the pain and had cried. The woman before him had taken his happiness. And he had left, hearing Celine's screams. 5 years passed. Caleb, Fabiola, and Brody had become one happy family. Moreover, their family had been expecting an addition soon. Meanwhile in Paris, Celine, having changed her name and appearance, continued to watch Caleb and his family. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel not to miss more exciting new products. Also, the authors will be pleased if you leave your opinion in the comments.